What's up, everybody? Welcome back. Now that we are 9 weeks into the season, all teams have now played at least 8 games, including the teams that have already had their bye weeks. So I felt like now was a good time to go through my mid-season awards. These are my selections for who, at least so far, have earned the awards for MVP, Offensive Player of the Year, Defensive Player of the Year, Offensive Rookie of the Year, Defensive Rookie of the Year, and Coach of the Year through the first 8 games of the season. Obviously, some of these might change by the time we get to the playoffs. In fact, most of them will probably change by the time we get to the playoffs, but at least for now, these are my personal picks for these awards. And of course, it wouldn't be an NFL award if you couldn't bet on the winner. So as I go through each category one by one, I will be displaying the odds of each potential winner while I talk about them, as they were shown on mybookie.com at the time of me recording this. And MyBookie, by the way, since they are our sponsor, if you are interested in betting on these awards and making the annual NFL Honor Show a bit more interesting for yourself, they still have an excellent offer for all subscribers of this channel, where you can get up to a 100% sign-up bonus on deposits of up to $1,000 just by putting in promo code Brett at the link in the description below when you sign up and deposit. So keep that in mind if you were planning on betting on any of these categories this season, or even on just any games of any sport this season. And while you're at it, also keep in mind that just because I am choosing a certain player to win the award for myself does not mean that I think they will actually win it, because my opinions often wildly differ from the opinions of a lot of other media members, including the Associated Press. So I'm putting the odds up so that you can currently see who is likely to win versus my opinion of who I think should win if I was the one giving out the award. And trust me, those are two very, very different things a lot of the time. So with all that said, let's get into it real quick and start off with MVP. And of course, I'm going to go with Patrick Mahomes here. I think this might be one of the few or the only time that I completely agree with the odds-on favorite to win the award. It's not just the numbers that are baffling to me. It's the tape behind the numbers. And I did a video on him, I think a little bit over a month ago now. It was after the first 3 or 4 weeks of the season. And just kind of showing off how, yes, the statistics are mind-boggling, but those statistics are happening not just because of a system, not just because of the players around him, but because Mahomes is genuinely playing at an MVP level. The personnel is not that different from last year. The system is not that different from last year. Like, there's a few different bells and whistles on it, but Andy Reid, it's not like they overhauled this whole offense to fit Mahomes. They're playing in roughly the same system that they were last year. It's a lot of the same concepts. They threw a little bit more extra into the jet sweep game they've got. The play action game's a little bit different, but for the most part, it's the same system that I saw last year and broke down last year when they were struggling against Pittsburgh and Dallas. But all that being said, it's the same thing, but Mahomes has just risen the level of play of this team so much. I mean, it reminds me a lot of Aaron Rodgers, where you look at their defense, you look at the personnel, and you look at what they're doing with Pat Mahomes versus what they did with Alex Smith. And it's the same thing that I get with Rodgers, where if Mahomes was not on the field, I genuinely think they would be a bad football team. They would not be in the discussion as a Super Bowl favorite without Pat Mahomes, just like Green Bay is not even remotely in the discussion for a playoff spot without Aaron Rodgers. To me, obviously Mahomes has had more turnovers than, Rodgers typically has. He's kind of picked up in the interceptions in the last few weeks. He's fumbled 5 times. But in terms of how he elevates the offense, how you really feel 100% confidence in this team to score every time they get on the field, there's very few quarterbacks that also give me that feeling, and Rodgers is one of them. And just the roster that surrounds him in Kansas City, I feel like Mahomes, I don't want to say he's completely carrying them, but if he was not on the field, this would be a bad football team. And to me, and I've said this in the past, most valuable player, it should really emphasize the valuable part of that. And there is no player in the NFL, to me, that is more important to his team this year than Pat Mahomes is to the Chiefs. The system is great. The personnel around him is great with Tyreek and Kelsey and Hunt and all that. I get that. But this is not the same team without Patrick Mahomes. He is the most valuable player to that team and in the NFL. So that one kind of speaks for itself. It's kind of in the name, most valuable player. And moving on to Offensive Player of the Year, I feel like that's an award where a lot of people kind of treat it as the runner-up to MVP, even if it's technically kind of supposed to mean a different thing. But, most people, they kind of vote like whoever they don't put as MVP, if they feel like should also be in the MVP discussion, they put an Offensive Player of the Year. whether it's a running back or, whoever the second best quarterback is this year. So, at least when you look at the odds, it's, Breeze and Rodgers and Rivers and Goff, all these quarterbacks that are also in the MVP discussion, but just don't have kind of the eye-popping production as Mahomes. They're all kind of in the running for Offensive Player of the Year. And the only running back on the list, which is pretty much the only other position that would win this, the only running back on the list is probably Mahomes' main competition for MVP, and that's Todd Gurley. And I am giving him Offensive Player of the Year, but not just because I feel like it's a consolation prize to MVP, but just because I feel like when you look at his whole body of work this year, rushing, receiving, even his pass protection is way better than it used to be. He is the most complete running back in the NFL. And I am saying that over Le'Veon Bell. I am saying that over Kareem Hunt. Because when you look at his physical gifts, like, he has the pure size and physicality to kind of pound it between the tackles and just grind out a game for you like he did against Seattle a few weeks back with, the 3 touchdowns. I think it was like less than 4 yards a carry, but, he really put the team on his back in the red zone. But he's also got the long speed and the explosiveness that if you just need to make a play, if you're on the 30-yard line and you need to get into the red zone quickly, you can throw a screen to Gurley, you can flex him out wide and have him run like a slant off a rub route, get him on the move over the middle. And he has such incredible speed for his size that he can work the edges or work over the middle and be that kind of he can be the backbone of your offense. And I know we're kind of going back to the MVP discussion here, but he is more valuable to that offense than Jared Goff, even though Goff plays the more valuable position, because he does everything for them. He does everything on all 3 downs. And so if there was anybody who was going to unseat Mahomes for MVP this year, it would be Gurley. In fact, I think I read a stat today that Gurley has just as many points by himself as the entire Bills offense for the entire season, which is mind-boggling. I know the Bills aren't a great offense, but still, to have one player match an entire NFL roster's offensive production for a season is utterly insane. Utterly insane in today's NFL, at least, where it seems like everybody has just crazy offensive numbers. So to me, Gurley is the Offensive Player of the Year, not just because he's a great running back, but because he's a great weapon. He does everything for them, absolutely everything. So I feel like he is going to win this award twice in a row. He did win it last year, and to me, he's my pick at least halfway through 2018 to win it this year as well. And speaking of last year's winners, Gurley's teammate Aaron Donald won Defensive Player in 2017. He's the odds-on favorite to win it in 2018, and I do have him winning it in 2018 as well. We're kind of going a theme here. Oh, Brett's just picking the favorites. Trust me, it's not going to be like that the whole time. But Donald and Gurley and Mahomes have just been that dominant that they are the easy choices. Donald in particular, since we're talking about Defensive Player of the Year, it's hard for me to think of any other 3-technique defensive tackle that I have ever seen with my own eyes play at this level. Ever. He is, we'd have to go back to, the most dominant days of Warren Sapp, of John Randall. He is in rare air all time in terms of defensive tackles. In fact, just defensive players, period, in NFL history. It's not just the sack numbers, it's the disruption on a play-to-play basis. Like zone run games where, the kind of the best way to stop a zone run game is, they call it backdooring, where you don't go to the front side of the block, you kind of swim behind the block and then try to use pure explosiveness to chase it down from the backside. And there's not a lot of defensive tackles that can do that. Like that is very, very hard to do, and you have to be a freak athlete to do it. Aaron Donald is one of those guys. He's one of those guys that if you're coming in with a pure zone run game into that stadium, you cannot run the ball away from him because he's going to backdoor the block every time and take it down for a loss. And that is exceptionally rare to have a 3-technique that can do that can both win frontside or backside and just completely annihilate a run game all by his damn self. And just looking at what he's doing, I know Ndamukong Suh's next to him, but looking what he's doing without elite edge talent around him, without elite linebacker play around him, it's truly, truly remarkable. I know they just got lit up by the Saints, but the Saints light up everybody in New Orleans. But individually, looking at what Aaron Donald is doing this season, I think he's having an even better year than last year. not just by numbers, but by tape as well. And that's saying something, because last year he won Defensive Player of the Year as well. Like, I have not seen any defensive lineman play at this level in a multi-year stretch since J.J. Watt from 2012 to 2014. Aaron Donald's the only other guy I've seen play at this level for that long of a period of time, and I don't think he's going to be slowing down anytime soon. To me, he only got drafted, 2014, so 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. He's only in his 5th year. I'm already putting him in the Hall of Fame. He's already there to me. I don't care. I can see nothing else for the rest of his career, and he's going in the Hall of Fame. So that kind of speaks to how much I love watching him on tape. That speaks to how dominant he is. And to me, even with J.J. Watt having a comeback season, even with Khalil Mack kind of turning around the Bears defense, there is no other choice than Aaron Donald for Defensive Player of the Year. He is truly a once-in-a-lifetime kind of defensive tackle. So I'll leave that one there. Moving on to Offensive Rookie of the Year. Saquon Barkley is the odds-on favorite right now. Phillip Lindsay is kind of the second place odds-on favorite because he's been a really remarkable surprise for the Broncos. In fact, the Broncos' whole rookie class has been phenomenal. I probably should do an episode on that at some point. Because when you look at Bradley Chubb and Phillip Lindsay and Courtland Sutton, I mean, their whole rookie class is insane. Like, they're going to be so damn good once they get a good head coach and a decent quarterback that's not Case Keenum. Like, their rookie class is unbelievable. But the Offensive Rookie of the Year that I'm choosing is Calvin Ridley, the first-round pick from Alabama that went to the Falcons. He's their 3rd wide receiver, but he is not producing like a 3rd wide receiver, and he's not producing like somebody who should be in 3rd place in the odds. I mean, his production has been absolutely bonkers. I mean, 7 touchdowns in his first 8 or 9 games. I don't think they've had a bye yet. I think they played 9 games. But still, 7 touchdowns in 9 games is utterly ridiculous for a rookie receiver, especially a rookie receiver that plays out of the slot a lot, and he and Mo Sanu kind of move around the formation a lot. Sanu sometimes in the slot, Ridley sometimes in the slot, but really they drafted him to be their slot receiver and then heir apparent to Mo Sanu as their number 2 outside eventually. But still, to have a rookie be essentially number 3 going into the year and then putting up these kinds of numbers, it is extraordinarily rare. It really takes a special player to be able to produce in that crowded of a receiving core. But he's doing it. He's an exceptional route runner. He's got fantastic hands. He's got deep speed. He's got great yards after catch ability. I mean, he has been a truly dynamic threat for that team. And with their struggles in the run game, last week notwithstanding against the Redskins, but with their struggles in the run game, they really needed a dynamic passing game to still move the ball. And I mean, damn sure they've had that. He has been everything they could have asked for and then some. And even though Mo Sanu is a good receiver, he is now giving them the cap flexibility to maybe move on from Mo and then throw that money elsewhere, whether it's, Deion Jones, Keanu Neal, Grady Jarrett, because they have a lot of young talent they need to pay. So, giving them that cap flexibility and also having him be potentially an upgrade at wide receiver too across from Julio, that was just a fantastic move by their front office. He's producing immediately, and he's going to be producing in the long term for them. So to me, at least halfway through the year, he is my Offensive Rookie of the Year, hands down, not just for the value he provides on the field this year, but for the value that I think he's going to be providing for many years to come. And on the flip side of that, Defensive Rookie of the Year, the guy that I'm choosing is not actually listed in the odds anywhere, unless you take the field, and that's Daron Payne. Again, I don't recommend you betting on Daron Payne because I can almost guarantee you he's not going to win. More likely, it'll be Darius Leonard or Derwin James or Bradley Chubb or Denzel Ward. It'll be one of those big 4. Maybe even Jesse Bates has kind of an outside chance. But in terms of who the smart bet is, it would probably be Darius Leonard or Derwin James. Both fantastic rookies, by the way. They are playing out of their minds, and I love both of them. I'll probably have to make episodes on both of them to convince people that I like them, because everybody in the comments of the Daron Payne video was saying, oh, it's all about Darius Leonard, it's all about Derwin James, why don't you like them? I love both of them. They're great. Just because I think that Daron Payne should be the Rookie of the Year, at least, by my standards, who I would choose as Rookie of the Year, doesn't mean that I don't like Leonard and James. They're both fantastic. It's just when I see a guy like Daron Payne on the field dominate like he does and completely shut down A-gap runs, Like, you look at the Falcons game last week. I know they put up 150 yards rushing, but they were not running at Daron Payne. They were not running. Like, Tevin Coleman's, his longest run, 16 yards. Like, they ran a counter into a blitz where Zach Brown was coming off the edge, and there was just nobody in the hole because of that blitz. Like, that was a schematic defeat, not a personnel defeat. They were running tosses to the edge that were not at Payne, and Preston Smith and Ryan Kerrigan were losing contain on the edges. Like, they weren't running up the middle at him because they knew they couldn't. So, to me, the fact that he is so good at stopping the run means that the Falcons had to attack everywhere else. Like, just because of the rest of the defense let him down and didn't do their jobs to shut down those edge runs doesn't mean that Daron Payne is not a phenomenal run stopper. It just means that his ability to stop the run inside changes game plans, and unfortunately, the game plans might work sometimes if the rest of the front seven doesn't do their job. But, in terms of just pure dominance from an individual perspective, because this is an individual award, when I look at Daron Payne on tape, I feel like he dominates his one-on-ones, he dominates his matchups, he dominates his role more than any other rookie this year. Even though Bradley Chubb is a great edge rusher, even though Denzel Ward is probably going to be a shutdown corner, he's certainly playing like it. Even though Derwin James is a stud, versatile, strong safety that's doing a little bit of everything. Even though Jesse Bates is a great center fielding, ball hawking free safety. Even though, Darius Leonard makes pretty much every single frickin' tackle for the Colts. I still think that Daron Payne, from an individual perspective, who is executing their role the best in their system, to me, that is Daron Payne. Will he win the award? Probably not. In fact, I think it's like a 98% chance that he won't win it just because of the nature of his position. But since I'm not, adhering to how the media typically picks this award, I can pick whoever I want. So I'm taking Daron Payne. He is a phenomenal player. He was a great pick by the Redskins. And as soon as they figure out all of their other issues on defense in terms of, fitting into their holes in the run game and, not losing the edges outside, they've been doing it all year up until the Falcons game. So I don't know what the hell happened, but they got to figure that out and then they'll be fine. But man, he certainly did his job. So I'm still going to give Payne credit for that. Now moving on to Coach of the Year, our last award. Again, this is a name that he's not listed here. But when I think of Coach of the Year, I don't think of, who's the best team. A lot of people, when they vote for Coach of the Year, they vote who's the best team. So obviously Andy Reid and Sean McVay are listed as number 1 and 2 here in terms of the odds-on favorites to win, because their teams are winning the most. Weirdly enough, Bill Belichick is never really listed in these, odds-on favorite to win Coach of the Year, even though his team is the best every year. But that's a whole different gripe for a different time. But my pick is actually Dan Quinn, because when I think about who deserves to win Coach of the Year, it's not about, how many points your offense putting up, how many turnovers are your defense generating, what's your quarterback playing like. To me, Coach of the Year is all about who is the best leader of men that can handle tough situations both on the field and off the field. Who is preparing their team to play, who is helping to dig them out of holes, who is inspiring their guys to play through tough situations. And to me, Dan Quinn, when you start off the year 1-4, and Atlanta had a really rough start to the year, their 4th loss in their first 5 games was that blowout to the Steelers. They were down a ton of starters due to injuries. I mean, Devontae Freeman was gone, Keanu Neal, Deion Jones, Grady Jarrett. Like, they were banged up. They were they were losing heartbreaking games. I mean, heartbreaking games. They were 1-4. Everybody was declaring them dead. But Dan Quinn is such a good leader of men that he was still able to dig this team out of that hole, get them motivated to play, get the backups playing to starting levels. He was able to help Steve Sarkisian kind of dig himself out of his rut from last year and get this offense to finally be productive like it should have been based on what their roster looks like. He got DeMonte Casey ready to play at a starting level when Keanu Neal went out. He's been generating, finding ways to get the pass rush generating pressure even when Grady Jarrett was gone. He has been just such a great leader to get them through that rough patch, to get them back to being a 500 ball club. I mean, they're 4-4 now. When they were left for dead, they're right back in the hunt for an NFC wildcard position. which they were in the hunt for a top 5 pick. You know, when you look at them after that Steelers blowout, everybody thought they were going to be a top 5 pick, just solely because of their injuries, and everybody thought the team was going to quit. But he didn't let them quit. He got them back into this race. And whether or not that 1-4 start is going to be too much for them to overcome in the long run to get into the playoffs, the fact that he was able to even get them back in the discussion for the playoffs is remarkable. And to me, he was the best head coach of the first half of the season because he was able to do that. There's a lot of lesser coaches where their teams would quit on them, where they would not want to finish the rest of the season and not play hard because they felt like they were already out of it, because all their stars were hurt. They felt like they didn't have a chance. You look at what's going on in Oakland, what's going on in Denver. I mean, those teams look damn near ready to quit because they started out in similar holes and they didn't believe in their coach to dig them out of it. The Falcons, that locker room believed in Dan Quinn to dig them out of that hole, and he dug them out of that hole. So he is my coach of the year solely on that criteria of who is the best leader, who is the best guy to prepare his team to fight and claw and scratch their way into the playoffs every single week. That's Dan Quinn. He's my guy. Now, I know it's kind of an unorthodox way to evaluate that award, and by no means do I expect Quinn to win it unless they somehow run the table and end up going like 12-4 and getting a first seed. Again, very unlikely to happen. But just how I look at how that award should be given out, that was my choice. So that'll wrap it up for all these awards. Again, thank you to our sponsor, MyBookie, for helping to make not just this video, but all videos on this channel possible for the rest of the season. They've been really, really huge for me. And if you did look at any of these odds and think, oh man, I kind of like that action on, Bill O'Brien on plus 500 for Coach of the Year, or, I like Darius Leonard at plus 200, or I like Phillip Lindsay at plus 700. If you're looking at these odds and thinking, oh man, I kind of want to take that, you're in luck, because you can head on over to mybookie.com right now, enter promo code Brett when you sign up and deposit. You can get a huge sign-up bonus up to 100% on deposits of up to $1,000. Not saying you have to deposit $1,000, but it goes up to that, so you can get a lot of bonus on that kind of deposit. And if you want to bet, maybe $10 on Darius Leonard, or $10 on Todd Gurley to win MVP, whatever you want to bet on, you can do that at the link in the description below. Just kind of makes NFL Honors a little bit more exciting as you're watching that award show. I know a lot of people kind of snooze when they watch it, but at least for me, when I was betting on Todd Gurley last year, it made it a hell of a lot more exciting when he actually won. So I can speak from experience on that. But anyway, if you want to do that, head to the link in the description below. Thank you guys again for watching this. I know it was kind of long-winded and I'm rambling a little bit on these categories, but I felt like mid-season awards would be kind of a fun thing to do. Some of you guys were asking for it, and I had time to do it this Monday, so felt like that was fun. I will be back either this Thursday or Friday with another Film Room episode. I have no idea what it's going to be on yet. My anniversary was this past Sunday, so I watched almost no football, like almost zero football. I kind of followed it on my phone a little bit when my wife wasn't looking, but I really didn't see a whole lot of what was going on. I've been reviewing games today to kind of catch up, but if you guys have any suggestions for what you want to do, I'm trying to decide, Jesse Bates, Derwin James, Darius Leonard, Colts offensive line, Mike McCarthy being super inconsistent. There's a lot of topics I want to get to, but I can't quite figure out which one I want to do. So again, if you guys have any suggestions, or if there's something you really, really, really want to see this week, throw it down in the comments below, and maybe that'll kind of help my decision process a little bit. So I will be back at some point this week with another episode, either Thursday or Friday. I'll also have some picks against the spread. And so yeah, I'll see you in a few days. And until then, later.